and welcome to the Moffitt Method Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of strength and conditioning and pushing the limits of athletic performance with your host, Joe Ryan. Each week, we'll explore the strategies, tactics, and innovations that make athletes stronger, coaches smarter, and the sports we love even more thrilling. Whether you're a coach, an athlete, or just a fan of the game, we've got something for you. We'll be talking to some of the brightest minds in the industry, sharing their insights and experiences, and uncovering the methods behind the madness of high-performance sports. So tune in, turn up the volume, and let's get ready to learn, grow, and be inspired. This is the Moffitt Method Podcast.
Our next guest is bringing a wealth of knowledge to the show. He's currently an assistant athletic performance coach at Indiana University, a role he earned after years of dedicated work in collegiate athletics. He's coached at a variety of schools, from high school programs like Live Oak High School to Division I powerhouses like Texas Tech, LSU, and Louisiana Tech. He also served as a director at Northwestern State University and was part of the staff at Appalachian State. And to round out his expertise, he spent a year and a half working with the innovators at SoarNext Exercise Equipment. We're incredibly excited to pick his brain today. Welcome into Coach Myatt, man. How are you doing today?
Doing great, man. Glad to be on here.
Absolutely, man. I know it's been we've hit a few bumps in the road between, my lack of former geography skills and understanding that Indiana's in a different time zone than Louisiana, and between work schedules, and we're able to get it in today.
Absolutely. I had to learn my first day too. I was like, man, I'm Eastern time. I was like, we're literally 20 minutes, change. Like you're driving through, time zone change, welcome to Bloomington. So I was kind of shocked too when I drove up here.
Yeah,
man. Glad to be on here.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. I know you've been at least for me, you're a big timer, man. You for us little guys back in Livingston Parish, man, you kind of made it big.
Oh man, I miss old Livingston Parish, man. I would do anything to go to La Coretta right now in Dim Springs and just smack some tacos and chips. And I love that area, being at Live Oak and getting to work with you. You were right down the road. I mean, that was big time, man. That community bought in quick, so I loved being there. So that's so I think what you're doing is big time.
Yeah, man, it's a great place, man. Great place to raise a family. Great place to work at. The huge support for what you do and how you do it in this parish. And, it's a fun time. You being a Louisiana guy yourself, I know it's North Louisiana, but down South Louisiana, it is, we all know it's a little bit different, man. You kind of got to experience all of it, man, from North Louisiana to playing in Central Louisiana to working in South Louisiana some. So,
Absolutely. My in-laws call me a Yankee because I was north of I-10. So I played in Alexandria. I lived in Baton Rouge, I guess 2 or 3 times when I interned at LSU with Moffitt, and then came back, was in Natchitoches, and so I was in Ruston at La Tech. I mean, I've been all over Louisiana, and I love that state. So it's been a good run.
Yeah, man. Well, while we're talking about that, give our listeners a little bit of insight on how Coach Jared Myatt got to where he's at right now.
Absolutely, man. I always like to add this little caveat here is why did I start this journey? And I was a kid that was not athletic, just scared of my own shadow in 7th, 8th grade. I moved to Calvary Baptist. It's in Shreveport, and there was a guy named Coach Matt Mary, and he was my strength coach. I didn't know that that's what the job was. I just knew that he was a D-line coach, and he took us through workouts. And after workouts one day, I was like, hey, Coach, I really thank you for doing the workouts for us and stuff like that. And he goes, Myatt, this is what I do. I was like, you get paid to do this? And I mean, ever since then, I was like, what do I got to do? And he's like, well, we got to get certified. In 8th grade, I was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I didn't know I was going to do college, but I was like, I know I want to lead and train people. And this and the transformation I had from myself being this timid kid to a person, fall in love with training and how my demeanor changed, my confidence changed. So when I played at Calvary, I played D3 football, but I was like, hey, do y'all have exercise science? Yeah, I was like, all right, cool, I can go to y'all. So I went to Louisiana College. My former roommate, Wes Bordelon, he's the head guy at Sanford University now. He was an assistant at La Tech University, and Kurt Hester was there at the time. And I was going to go intern at Tulane, And Kurt invited me down to come watch Max Outs one day, just, before I graduated, just trying to get some more experience. And it was Max Out day. The energy was great. And he looked at me. He's like, are you going to be a strength coach? I was like, yes, sir. And he's like, where are you going intern? I was like, Tulane. He's like, screw that. Well, he said some other things, but he said, screw that. And he's like, you're going to come in, you're going to come here and coach and be, and come intern for me. I was like, yes, sir. So I ended up going to La Tech. He went and spoke at a Georgia Tech clinic like a week before and met a guy named Carl Miller, who was at Mercer University. So they had a GA spot open after the summer. I went and interviewed for that, got the job, moved to Mercer University, did a year and a half there, 2 seasons there. Didn't have a job after the GA spot, and I just kept trying to reach out. And my wife wanted to go back home a little bit. So I was like, well, Baton Rouge is home. I was like, LSU, I've always wanted to go work for Coach Moffitt, even though it's a volunteer role. Went to LSU. Was there. A job opened at App State. I was there just for a quick minute because I was at App State, and then the Northwestern State job opened. And again, that's back home. My wife wanted. I was making like part-time money at App State, and I wasn't making much more than Northwestern, but at least it was close to family, closer to my family. So I went to Northwestern State for 3 seasons. Loved it there. So when I was at Mercer, Derek Owings was a player. That's my current boss here. So he and I became friends through that process because he finished up his last year. So his second year he interned with us and then went on to GA. So we stayed in touch. So when he was at Texas Tech, he was like, hey man, there's a spot open. Apply for here at Texas Tech. Went to Texas Tech. COVID, this is where it gets kind of shaky. COVID happens. A lot of stuff was crazy happening during that time period. I'm sure everybody had some weird stuff going on. But Sornax called and said, hey, man, we need a South rep. I was like, I probably need a break. This COVID stuff wearing me out and everybody else out. I can live remote wherever I want to. So I went and worked for Sornax for a year and a half, and it was great. Bert Sorn was amazing to me. But I just missed coaching, and I was like, I already kind of jumped out. I was like, I'm not going to move again, I guess. And so I just printed my resume out one day, drove around, went to Denham. I don't think I knew you. I didn't know you at the time.
I was sitting in the office, but I don't think we knew each other really.
Yeah. I was like, hey man, I'm just looking for a job, and Beard's like, man, go down to Live Oak. I was like, I think they're going to need somebody. And so I went to Live Oak. Those guys were great. And so I was there for 2 seasons. Absolute blast. And then Derek, again, got the head job in Indiana, called me. He's like, hey, man, I'm going to have a spot open. Would you like to jump back in? And I was like, man, hey, get your guys first. I'm not going to, I don't want to do, jump ahead of anybody like that. And he's like, man, it's like, I trust you. You know what I want, and I need it from day one. And so I was like, all right, let's do this. Asked the wife, and she's like, yeah. She's like, I kind of miss it too. And I was like, okay, you're back in it. Let's go. So here I am, man. It's year 2.
Yeah, man, it's always great to have the support from the wife. A lot of guys miss on that is that, they're just a part of this as anyone else, man. And I know you're huge with your family, man, and I love to see it is that they are just as much, although they're not physically in the room, they're just as much a part of that family you have every day at work. And kind of those decisions fall back to them as far as, is this going to be the best thing for them and where we're going?
Absolutely. I mean, and the version of that we are in our marriage and who I am now as a man and how she's developed as a woman, like this job is way better now that we've gone through all these troubles, through our early 20s. Like we're so more seasoned and understand what it takes. Like she's not calling me like, why aren't you home yet? Like she's like, no, he's got his job and he'll be home. And when I'm home, I'm trying to be locked into the kids and them, and I'm up early at 5 and I'll leave out. And like that version of us now, that makes this job so much better too, because we just have such a common understanding. When we were younger, it wasn't there. Like, we had to figure out, the give and take of this job, the demands, the support of each other, newlywed, adding a kid to the mix. Now we got 2 kids. We're rolling. We got to figure it out. She's got the kids taking them to school. She works remote. She just texts me like, hey, let me know when you're coming home, and I'll have dinner ready. I'm like, all right. So this has been, it's been amazing. So we've been together. We'll be married for 10 years. We've been together for probably about 13. So it's been great.
That's awesome, man. And I think a lot of young strength coaches kind of don't realize coming into it, how long the journey takes. Mm-hmm. You're getting to the point just now, and you've been doing this for, 10 plus years of, I'm finally getting to where, I'm at somewhere I want to be with people I want to be around. Not saying you didn't before, but as far as, everybody has career goals and aspirations and they want to continue to build upon that, but you're getting to where, things are finally lining up. I'm here for a reason. I'm where my feet are supposed to be. And that takes time. It's not just, you don't graduate from college and you immediately get these, D1 jobs that everybody gets. It's a process.
100%. And I'm grateful for my journey. Like it makes me so much more grateful. Like I definitely had times like, man, I wish I just could tailgate on a Saturday and not be a part of the coaching world and like have a normal life and all this stuff like that. So I got to go to sales and be completely out of it. And I was like, man, I missed that. I didn't wake up with a drive like I used to. I wake up like someone's getting better than me, or I'm not, kids depending on me to be on my A game today. I didn't have that. I just woke up, check some emails, go visit some guys, make some sales. And then when I went to the high school level, it was just strictly just as bare bones as it could be. Kids are leaning on you. They have nothing else. Like some of these kids are not even getting fed, and like they don't have anything consistent in their life. And the passion really came back to me. I was like, man, this is why I want to be a strength coach. Like, this is the reason why I am making a genuine difference in these kids. And if I have a bad day, I affect hundreds of kids that have nothing else going on with them. Here, where I'm currently working, a kid, he's got other stuff going on. There's financial stuff. There's, they have 1,000 different people supporting or whatever else. In Denham Springs, Louisiana, or Watson, Louisiana, that those kids are like, man, their best day might be getting to go in there and coach might have a workout, and then, after the workout, crack some jokes and try to cheer them up and give them and breathe life into these kids. And I thought it was that serious. Like, I was like, you have to mold these kids because someone's not. Like, it may not happen, and so so now when I'm back to this level, it's like, man, like I'm just so grateful for so many things, and being back here, I'm like, it's just, I have the passion of coaching again, and then the resources now added on top of that. It's like, wow, every day I'm like, this is awesome.
Which is a huge appreciation, man. Like I talk with people all the time about this, whether it's high school or at your level. Being at somewhere smaller makes you that much better of a coach and does re-energize the batteries, man. Like, you coached high school ball for a few years. I've always been a believer in those smaller school coaches that come to the bigger school level, 1A to 5A or whatever it may be, 2A upward. They're so much better coaches because they do more with less. And, you've kind of seen it all, man. Like you said, from Watson, Louisiana, all the way up to Indiana University. I mean, you've seen a good bit of everything.
100%. You got to get things done. I always think it's funny when I see NFL coaches come out of college and they think they're just about to just crush it. Like, not anywhere particular, but like at the smaller level, you have to be, the counselor, the person that's making sure they're getting, their stuff done. There's not 40 people guiding them through this. Like, you have to be like, okay, I can't just assume anything. And at the high school level, like, hey, you might have to set the field. You're going to have to do practice plans. You're going to have to, you have to do it. My first year I had to teach a class. I mean, I got it done. It was a struggle.
I remember that. Yeah.
I was like, all right, here we go. Teaching some history. You were stretched so thin at the high school. So I have so much respect for high school coaches. You were stretched 8 million different ways. And, you're not going to be, if you do a great job, you're not going to get a giant raise. It's just part of the, your progression, as a teacher. How many years do you have in the field, and so that's how you get paid, maybe you get a coordinator or head coaching role, but that's the only difference. But you have to wear so many hats and so many different things. It just makes you better. It forces you to get outside of your own little world and worry about, if you're just a quarterback coach, you're going to have to help equipment. You're going to have to help with, maybe the weight room. You're going to have to help with planning, be a DFO. So when you, when you always had that and then come down to somewhere you have to do that, you're lost. You're like, this place can't get it done. Like, no, you got to get it done now.
Yeah, nobody tells you that you got to be in the weight room for 3 hours a day, and on your off hour, you go drag the field. And by the way, after workouts, you're the one scooping the protein into the bottles, and you're the one, helping pick up the bathroom. Nobody tells you that stuff coming out, right?
Absolutely, man. Like I said, and the thing is too, like at the high school level, like there's coaches that I was at the high school level that I told them, I was like, dude, you would have been an outstanding college coach, and there's a guy that's been the same amount of years that like literally just checks the box and just shows up. And it's like, man, like they're at the same school, like both position coach, but it's like totally two different people, like they don't come in just clean out high school coaches, like, hey, let's get them out. Like You might change the head coach, and then all the assistant coaches are the same. So it's like the guys that go in there and just because they have passion and they have drive and they try to make the place better, so like Cash Littlefield, the DC at Live Oak, man, that guy is sharp as a tack, organized, hard worker. I love that guy. So he crushes it. So like he's running the weight room now down there.
Yep.
I mean, he's doing GPS. I mean, he wasn't the strength coach, but he like every day came and asked me questions. When I do this, he's like, if you ever leave, what do I need to do? And I was like, I'm not leaving, dude, but okay, I'll show him. And then sure enough, I was like, hey, man, good thing you learned. So,
man, I talked to Cash last night, man, because I think everybody in our area down here, it was a real humid Friday night, and I think a bunch of people kind of felt it for the first game, underneath the light. So him and I had a good conversation the other night.
That's awesome, man. Great dude.
Yeah, man, he is. So you kind of found your aha moment early in life, man. You knew exactly what you wanted to do as an 8th grader, which is, it's pretty rare. Not many people, my 6-year-old up until this year wanted to be a cashier at Walmart,
Mm-hmm.
Not many people know what they want to do. So you kind of found that early. What's something on all levels, because you've been in the FBS level, you've been at D3s, you've been in the FCS level, you've been at high school, a lot of people just think, oh, they're the strength coach. They're just the guy wearing tight sleeves on the sideline and screaming and yelling. And, you've kind of touched on a little bit of this, but what's something that's, critical to the success that a lot of people don't see?
Man, I've always said this. It's emotional intelligence, man. Just understanding and reading a room. Like, yeah, there's times you yell and scream just because, like, you're excited for them. They want to be cheered on for something. You might, you have to look the part. You got to train. You got to live the life. You got to obviously know your craft. You got to, every day you got to find something to read and get better at. But, like, understand all these kids are different, especially nowadays. Like, I'm not trying to be like an old head. Like, kids have changed. Everyone's changed. Parents have changed.
Oh, yeah.
And so understanding, like, there's some kids on this team, that or teams I've been in the past, I just have to walk up and say, hey, bro, like, that's not good enough, and that's not what you're about. Just fix it. Or there's other guys that have to get in their ass a little bit and say, hey, listen here, man, like, that is not the standard, and you must meet the standard. And, like, you have to kind of get into them a little bit because they have to understand and feel that you're not just talking to them. Like, they're like, oh, I'm getting coached up right now. Like, and then some guys are just shotgun approach. They just yell and scream and scream and scream, and they just become deaf to it. Like, the whole team is just deaf to it. And then now you have to next time you get upset about something, you have to just up the ante, lose your mind. And when I was a young coach, I was a shotgun approach every single time. Transactional. The kid works. Kid needs to do it this way. Everybody's gonna be a weight room warrior. And I'm like, man. And it's really the high school level that made me change that, is because my best players were not good weight room guys. And I was like, oh, it was like, and the strength coach in me, I was like, man, I love that kid, but he can play dead in the Western, man. He is horrible.
Isn't it funny how that happens?
I'm telling you, when you coach a position, you're just home. I'm saying things that I was getting so frustrated at football coaches with. And I was like, all right, this kid is, I had a defensive tackle, again, it's 5A high school football. He was 195 pounds maybe. And he was like defensive MVP in the Red Stick Bowl, played D tackle. But he was just an animal. And I loved him. But he couldn't squat nothing. He couldn't bench. He was weak, but he was just twitched up and was a good football player. And so I was like, all right, man, like, you need to make sure you raise the ceiling for each kid. But it doesn't mean that this kid's just an absolute animal in the weight room, that he's going to be just this absolute on the field. It helps. Like, it makes, it helps buy-in and stuff like that. But it just crushed me. Like, I was like, man, this kid here is crushing every day. He's squatting all the way down. I mean, he's lifting tons of weight. He's doing extra work. Man, he can't walk and chew bubble gum. And it's just, it is what it is. And, like, you don't, stray away from hard work or those guys. You cheer them up, and that's their Super Bowl, is in the weight room, and try to give them a little, pat on the back and stuff like that. But you just understanding, reading the room. Not every kid's, going to be approached the same way. And I had to kind of come to grips with that, and it's made me better at this level now, especially with the NIL era and everything like that. It's okay, I am here to raise the ceiling for these kids and get the most out of them, each and every one. And it takes a different approach, and that's where you got to learn the relationships with them.
Yeah, man. Exactly what you just said. When I first got done GAing in college and got to the high school level, it took me a while to understand not every kid's like me, and not every kid's wired the same way. They're all different. You might have some kids that crush it in the weight room and just they aren't very good out there. Some kids that aren't very good in the weight room and they crush it on the field. Like you said, some of our best players weren't weight room warriors. Same story here, man. Just a different place. It's it happens. It's part of the game. That's why it's so hard to make it to that level as an athlete. And I don't think kids realize that all the time. It's like us as coaches say it like. The reason there are 2%ers is exactly that reason. Is it's so tough to get there, and until they experience it, they don't know, and kind of see everything that happens day in and day out there. So, what's like something for you, man? Like you've kind of talked about it and building the relationships and having those kids understand that you still love them, but you're just trying to coach them. Whether it's a piece of equipment or philosophy or anything that's highly underrated, that's kind of a secret weapon for you.
When you said that question, I was kind of thinking on it, man. Like we can get all into the different equipments and modalities and stuff like that. And I really just philosophy wise is just being consistent. Your approach, your programming. I think the kids lack consistency in their daily life. So you need to be that person. Like you need to, if they mess up, they get on them. If they do a good job, praise them. Yeah. And don't play the mind games. These kids are so bipolar, man. Like you got to show I'm not just playing some mind game with you. You really messed up, and here's the reason why. And being consistent with that every single day. When you have when I was at the high school level, they always met in this one room, and they had to be there exactly this time. And they always had to go to the rack and do a barbell complex and get warmed up and then whatever warm ups we had. And then every single day was just consistent. We would work a squat, RDL or whatever else, especially with big groups.
Yeah.
But if you pick and choose every day, hey, today we're just gonna take it easier. Hey, we're just gonna do arms day. You're just throwing stuff at the wall that you're gonna get inconsistent results and inconsistent buy-in. The kid needs to know, man, it's Monday and we're gonna squat, and I know that's what's gonna happen every single time until he leaves. And I think that's the biggest thing. And again, we could talk about different tools and stuff like that, but I just think that's one thing coaches need to work on is just being consistent every single time. Don't come in moody. Don't come in, one day joking and one day not. Just be who you are all the time. And those kids will buy into that. So it's, I think that's one big thing, is just really, really buy into that. As far as modality though, if I had to pick something, I'll probably get a lot of flack for this, but I've always liked the slant boards. Just so many kids lack ankle mobility. I competed in Olympic weightlifting for a little bit, and I still had to work on my ankles. But in the meantime, you need to get their hips and knees in a full range of motion, and load that squat pattern, load that whatever you're doing, and really start getting some exposure to that. And then in the meantime, work on your ankle mobility. I think that's kind of one thing I really every high school, hey, you can either get a couple boards from Home Depot, or you can actually go to Prime Fitness and get the nice steel slant boards, but get kids squatting and moving. The practice will take care of the gaps, the shorter range of motion movements and things like that and other auxiliaries, but you need to squat 4 range of motion. You need to get those, knees and hips under a load in those in ranges.
Man, your first answer just about, it's exactly what I was looking for, because, teaching us how to coach and teaching coaches how to coach and kind of be there and understand all that is more important, I think, than sometimes, what we do in the weight room. Everybody's kids are different no matter where you're at. So what you do in the weight room, one thing may work for you that doesn't work for me, or one thing may work for me that doesn't work for you. And, it's all part of the game and how we do it. And, showing up and being consistent is, like you said, it's the number one thing, because they don't have day-to-day schedules where it's always the same. Girlfriends break up with them, boyfriend, if you're dealing with female athletes, boyfriends break up with them, whatever it may be. Some of that stuff is out of your control. And back to what we talked about, you got to play psychologist sometimes. So being consistent and being the person from, day one in January and come back from Christmas break till you leave again for Christmas break, I found too, man, that's the best thing for these kids. But when you talk about slant boards, you did put me on that. I used to love seeing the videos you had at Live Oak, and, we started getting on them over here at Denham, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And people are like, oh, there's not a slant board in the field. Yeah, I get it. They play on the balls of their feet. But like at the end of the day, like, when that kid's gonna fall or getting a deep range of motion and some awkward fall, like they need to have strength there. Like Coach Moffitt always said, strength is angular specific, and like 10 to 15 degrees. So like you need to build that strength in deep ranges and like all ranges of motion, and then fill in the gaps with other movements and modalities and accessories. And some will be parallel, some might be a quarter, and some aspects, and that's where you fill it in. But those heavy core lifts, like you need to get that tissue developed and recruit a lot of motor units.
Yeah, and that's something just like you said with Coach Moffitt. Kurt Hester told me that years ago that it's everybody thinks it's your hips and your hamstrings and everything in the middle of your body, which is factual, but it's your ankle mobility is why you can't squat deep. And that's when that hit with me, I was like, okay, that makes sense now. I get it. This is why these kids are kind of built the way they are and how they can do some things and others can't do others. And that helped me a lot too, man. So, when you talk about all this stuff and not necessarily programming, but when you talk about, what makes kids tick and, how to do certain things, is there some stuff maybe in your career that, was a success or a failure that, you changed the next time around, or something that didn't go as planned that made you better as a coach in the weight room?
It's kind of hard. It's like, we could be here all day talking about my failures in the weight room, but
all of us, right? I look at programs from 3 years ago and I'm like, man, what the
Oh man, I mean, if you want to talk about that, like talk about again my development as a coach. Like me from 22 to 27 or 8 years old, I'm just like every time I meet someone from a long time ago, like I'm so sorry that you met me in that span of my life. Like hopefully I can change, your view on me. But basically, kind of like you said, the shotgun approach of just always thinking kids just need to be yelled and screamed at to get them hype or in trouble. The thing that I used to do like a freak of the week, freaks of the week type thing in Northwestern State. And it was basically like who brought the most energy and this, that, and the other. And that was like the only thing I really had, like as far as like a leaderboard at the time. We didn't have, we're at Northwestern State. We didn't really have any technology. Yeah. And I had a freaks of the week, and it was really the same like 9 guys on rotation. And it's kind of like some of the guys on our team here don't talk at all, and they're freaks of nature. But they would, I was thinking like, man, he would have never been on the board because he never talks, he never does anything crazy. It's not like his weight's really that good, and it's like I kind of missed a whole mark of the team. It's like just because I wanted everyone to fit in this pigeonhole of what I think everyone should be in the weight room, there was no way to give them an attaboy or a pat on the back for working hard. It was kind of like, hey, they did everything I asked to a T. Like, how could I have shown in the weight room like hey, great job, or like you appreciate it or whatever else. That's one thing too. Is like when you do something, kind of understand like what are you measuring, and is it attainable for everybody? Is it measurable? Measure it, and is it attainable? It's kind of like goals in general. And so that's one thing I noticed is when I did freaks of the week, I was like, man, it's really just the same 10 crazy guys on my team that are just rotating on here instead of the few guys that are actually playmakers for us. And, I could have gave them a little shout out or, kind of helped in, them being captains or whatever else because they're getting their name around more, things like that. So just kind of making sure that whatever you're measuring is attainable for these guys.
Yeah. Getting to know them, I think, is a huge thing about it, man, is just kind of knowing their story and knowing where they come from. It kind of helps with that. It's kind of that built-in motivation, right? That not necessarily it's always the guy that is hooping and hollering and, I don't want to say it's fake energy, but sometimes it is, man. Sometimes kids provide because they don't know, because they just think that's what we have to do. That's what this, I don't want to call it mantra, but that's what this is about, is we're hooping, we're hollering, we're banging weights around, which is great. But at the same time, it's getting to know them and, their story is that built-in motivation and confidence that they need a lot of the time.
Right. I totally agree.
So you've worked in for probably the highest profile weight room equipment company in maybe the world now. It's pretty high profile. Sornex, you kind of see it everywhere, especially on your level, but you're starting to get down to the high school level, and you see it a lot with the U.S. military too. They're starting to get those weight rooms for the military, whether it's special ops or just your normal weight rooms on bases. When you see all that, you look ahead for the future of strength and conditioning. Is there something, whether it's equipment that's a trend or a development that you know, you're excited about, or something that, maybe we need to leave this behind, where it's at?
Oh yeah, man, for sure. I mean, especially being like on the R&D side of like when we're working at Sornax, like just
Yeah.
seeing all the ideas and stuff coming up. I'm excited for the future because they're just going to continually integrate the sports science with the racks, make it just easier to use, and actually, because you're so limited on time, and I hate when people always said like, oh, we're limited on time on things we do. Like, we'll just keep it simple. But the way it's going, like people want to see those metrics. They want to see, the perch and the catapults and everything else going on. So I think they're going to continue to integrate that more seamlessly. As far as like leaving behind, I think the history is starting to kind of repeat itself. I'm starting to see a lot more machine work and like bigger weight rooms again. Because back in the day, like early 2000s, like Kentucky had this ginormous room with machines and it was hit training and all that stuff like that. And I think now it's kind of like people are either A, like going all in with Olympic lifts, or B, they're going to go, hey, we're going to do box jumps and barbell squat jumps and do machine work and like just kind of hit. We need to develop these kids in 1 year as fast as possible and put mat size on them. So it's I don't know as far as like things to leave behind. I'm starting to see a lot of AI integration, and which is great, but I really hope that doesn't make us more dumb as coaches, like just relying and not critically thinking on what you're doing, and because eventually we're going to start replacing positions in college. It's just going to be like, hey, instead of this guy, that's just the AI software we use, and that can do everything for us. It can interpret this and then send an email to the coaches. So the AI stuff has its place, I think, a little bit, like just at least getting the data collected. I'm hoping the AI doesn't get where we're just making decisions and writing programs just on whatever it thinks it should be, instead of you actually going out there on the floor and knowing these players and what they need. So I'm hoping that passes by.
Yeah, the best thing for you is floor time, right? I mean, Coach Moffitt always said that. That's the best thing for you, is to get out there on the floor and experience it. And, sports science has become such a big thing. And when you said that about AI, it's like, it's so big now and so useful in a lot of areas. Like, you hope that some computer generated AI, and they're probably listening to us right now as we say this, it's some computer generated AI takes over that sports science, but doesn't really know, the true, AI can't test heart of a kid, or AI can't test, how passionate they are about something. And, whereas a sports scientist, which, most people have them now, they can actually see the kid day in and day out and see that, that kid might have just had a bad day. That's why the GPS registered the way it did, or that's why, they're a little more lethargic than what they normally are, because everybody's got bad days. You're almost, sometimes you earn a bad day every now and then,
Right.
And, that is one thing, man. I've heard a lot about AI and, it getting to that world, especially at your level, get into that world. And like you said, it can be useful. I use it every now and then to help maybe with some, back to play protocol or things that I'm stumped on. If I can't resort back to anything Boosh Sexsnyder wrote for a hamstring, is there something out there on the internet that might help me, which is very seldom, but, sometimes it's useful. I use it to help me on social media posts.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, it's a good thing, man. Here's my idea, but I sound like an idiot sometimes when I post stuff. So how can AI fix this up?
Hey, church this up for me. I need to clear my thoughts out.
Yeah, help me not sound like a Neanderthal right here.
I get that.
So, man, you've worked with some high-level athletes, Texas Tech, Northwestern, you're at Mercer, and at App State for a little while, Is there something in your journey specifically, how you did things that kind of physically and mentally transformed athletes during an off season?
Man, it just nothing. I mean, it's nothing groundbreaking, man. I've always been so simple in my approach. Simple and consistent. That's the only thing I've always want to try to lean on. It's people always say you can't do Olympic lifts. You don't have time, and like I always took pride in like, hey, man, I got my guys, and they were lifting great. I would do barbell complexes every day, like just at least warm up and get them used to that motor pattern. And they were great cleaners by the end of the semester. And I just think, not just straying away from stuff because it's hard, like basically like they can take information and learn and move their body around. And that's why I always loved the Olympic lifts. And, I think through my career, like that was one thing that helped guys like just take in a task and be able to do it. So I was really, there's nothing been really like too insane that I've ever seen. It's basically just clean up your nutrition, make sure they're sprinting, at least once or twice a week, and 90% above, and making sure that that you're straining them, but also building on top of it, and not just breaking them down every single day. And I just I don't have anything like groundbreaking. I wish I did, but I think that the consistent and simple approach over and over again really gave great results. And I think people try to look for so much fancy stuff nowadays that they're getting inconsistent results because they want something that looks better on social media. They want something that, to impress a coach. It's like, well, no, just trust the process that this, methodology is what is working, and just keep hammering that day in and day out.
Yeah, man. And it's, a lot of the stuff that you were doing at Northwestern State, was kind of above or before its time, and keeping it consistent. I call it the meat and potatoes. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, man. Like, that's part of the consistency talk we've had is, it shows results. So why would we do anything different? Are there things that it could be tweaked here and there? Absolutely. Everybody's got some tweaks to do, like we said with the programming. There's stuff I did 3 years ago where I'm like, that was stupid. Like, why did we do that? But in the same breath, the meat and potatoes are the meat and potatoes. You mentioned Olympic lifting. That is the biggest cop out for me, is that if everybody says that that you can't teach that stuff, and in reality, man, give me a PVC pipe and give me an hour, and I can have a kid at least getting a Javor complex down to where they understand the basis of a clean or a snatch.
Absolutely. And like when you especially assessing mobility and things like that, like that's what I love on the Olympic lifts is like you can see their T-spine mobility, you can see their ankle mobility, their hip mobility, you can see, intent on the barbell. If you don't have a perch system or whatever like that, like, hey, that guy's moving the bar really, really fast, and like you're getting your intent right there. So if I was to, whenever I become a head guy again, like I'm always going to have some sort of Olympic variation in there. I might dial it back just because as I've evolved, I've found some other things that might have worked, but I still think there is some merit to getting and bending, having some intent in the bar, make sure we're still cleaning, and, moving a bar in space, and then go out there and run fast on the field. And so I think that really holds a lot of weight.
Yeah, dialing it back some, I'm going to agree with that. There's some days where their joints need a little bit of rest, in that, especially with the clean, man, in that catch position, but there's other things we can do. I see the high pull becoming a big thing, which is still a part of that clean, man. And I see it becoming more and more prevalent, probably more on the professional level than anything inside those weight rooms, that those guys are giving their bodies a little bit more rest because they're playing at such a high level. But, I've used that in some days where I just, I ride the wave. Connor Neighbors, I went to a talk he had at UL one time, and he mentioned riding the wave, and it was just like, all right, we don't have to be nonstop all the time. These kids might need a break. So if we're in the middle of fall camp and it's week 2 and, I see they're lethargic, maybe we're not going to catch that clean today. Maybe we're just going to front squat and then we'll high pull. I'm still getting that same explosiveness of parts of the clean. The clean. I dropped my mic right there, y'all. Parts of the clean, but it's still getting what we need done.
Absolutely. And like you said, that's just comes back to being, have emotional intelligence of what your players need and what they, what's going on. Just because they, are moving slow doesn't mean we need to like change what we're doing. But like, hey, like they're moving slow because, it's a 6 a.m. lift. You're like, okay, like, hey guys, let's wake it up. Let's kind of do a better warm up next time, like whatever it is. Or hey, it's week 3 of camp and they're beat down. Like we're gonna have to adjust. Like always, like it's always a fine line between changing your periodization like day by day, or just making adjustments but still hitting those macro needs throughout the day. Like those dosages, what you're trying to get. Some people are like, oh, today we're just going to do this. Like, no, like what was the plan and what was the tonnage or volume, whatever you're trying to get, still try to get that, but it might look a little different. Like, that's what people, I think get confused. They see one program like, oh, well, today we just did this. Like, well, hopefully a good coach is saying, well, we still got what we needed. We just changed the way it looked.
Yeah, man, and I think that's vital for success in the weight room is that you're able to do that because, that's kind of how you burn them out. You burn yourself out kind of doing that because you're not seeing the results you're in your mind that you want, and it's dejecting, right? And I've been there before. I've done that, back in 2023, I did that right before fall camp. I pushed them probably more than what they needed to be because I thought we had to repeat results, and it was like, I burned them out and we kind of crushed them, and the results showed. We went 3-7 that year. Was that a direct thing? Maybe, maybe not. But a lot of it, when I look back, I'm like, maybe I was too much on them too quick. And it kind of crushed them a little bit. So we talked a little bit about philosophy. Is there something that kind of keeps you going outside of this? Not just philosophy in the weight room, but is there a hobby, routine? I think I know the answer to this, and I hope it's what we're going to hear, but, something that kind of separates you from just being, here's this meathead strength coach showing up,
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's a hobby, but the thing that drives me is being a dad first and foremost. I love my 2 kids so much, and anytime I can, I'm going to go play with Samson and Tyson. With that being said, I love jiu-jitsu. And I bring my kids to class, and my kids call it wrestling practice. And like, Dad, can we go to wrestling practice? And I'm like, yeah, buddy. So now that they're able to go to class and be in there, and like while I'm training, that's been huge because I'm always like, do I sacrifice a few evening times I have, to not be with my kids, go do this hobby that I enjoy, or I go home and now that they want to go, I'm like, oh, thank God, like they have fun, they play on the mats. At least my oldest does. My youngest one's still a little iffy, but so it's that jiu-jitsu is one of it, and then just cooking, man. I love to cook. Smoking meats, Cajun food. I mean, it doesn't matter. I love to cook. I haven't got to do it much in the last month or two because of work, but I Coach Moffitt, when I was intern at LSU, anytime I get him talking about barbecue, I just wanted to just soak it all in and hear what he was have to say because I cook for the guys up here, man. I've done jambalaya, pastalaya, gumbo, all the players. I mean, I had 45 guys show up to my house one day. I mean, just cleaned out the pot and everything. So it's cooking's probably one of my biggest passions, and it's been great.
I was hoping that was going to be the one, man. I love every time I see you make something for those guys, man, and I look at it, I'm like, son of a gun, man. That makes me hungry, and I wish that we'd have got together and done some of that while you were here. I love that you bring our culture up there to Indiana, man, and those kids probably, not only do they appreciate it, but get to see a different walk of life and a different, kind of world of, it's not just we're eating alligator all the time or whatever it is, it's, the jambalayas, the pastalayas, the gumbos, man, all that stuff is great. We're going to have to freeze some crawfish and get them up there for you in the springtime, huh?
100%. The guys have asked. I was like, man, if y'all want all you money bags, y'all can go buy some crawfish and shipped up here. So like literally like some of these kids, I cooked and I was like, I didn't expect much of it. Like 10, 15 guys showed up. I brought the facility one time. I've done it at my house before. By the third or fourth time, I mean, it was like guys were calling me him on the way. I'm like, dude, I'm out. Like I cooked for 60 people, and guys were grabbing 2-3 plates, and one guy who like he never talks. Like they were like one of his buddies was like, hey, I heard you cooking, and the guy who never talks is like, yeah, he made pastalaya. It was the best thing I ever had in my life. And there's like 1,000-yard stare. I was like, oh, I got him to speak. I was like, I guess it's that good. So it's been good. It's been awesome, man. So it's just a good way because I like to coach intent, have some intensity when I coach. So like see a different side of me and like kind of talk about something and kind of finds common ground with somebody who might not have anything in common outside here, but I feel like everybody loves good food. So it's been good.
It's often a love language, right? I mean, who doesn't love a good meal? It's what we do when we take our wives to do something. It's always, let's go eat. How about we go eat? It is a love language, and it's a trust thing too, right? They can, while the times aren't as different as maybe they used to be 10 years ago where they don't know where their next meal is coming from, and you do have these opportunities now that it's more, I guess, allowable that you can do this, but they appreciate that stuff because even though they are where they are and they're playing ball, that home cooked meal they don't often always get. Eating in the cafeteria is not the same as a good home cooked meal from mom, grandma, dad. whatever it is. And, I love to see that, man. It's something that, at the high school level, it's a little bit different, but, you used to do it when we're down here at Live Oak, man, is have a different parent kind of cook for the kids on those Thursday nights or Wednesday nights before the game, man. And it goes such a long way with the trust of a young athlete, that they can know, like, man, coach really does love me. Like, we're breaking bread together, we're eating together, we're, fellowship. A lot of the times when I do that, same with you, I'm sure it's not even about football. It's just about life.
100%. I mean, kind of going back to Coach Mary, the guy that I was in 8th grade who did the workouts for us, man. The reason I want to be a strength coach is I wanted to be that somebody that he was for me. And I had a rough childhood, not from an abusive or situation, but my dad had a stroke when I was a kid. And when I found out, they said, "Hey, Jared, can you come to the office?" Blah, blah. I came in there and I saw him sitting there in a chair holding a Bible. And I just looked at him and I had this peace that something's wrong, but I know that he's here with me. And I sat next to him and I looked at him and I swear, and I was like, "Is my dad alive?" He said, "Yeah, buddy, he's alive, but your mom's almost here." And that's the only thing we said. And I just sat back in my chair, 15 years old. And I was at peace. And I was like, man, I'm just glad I have this guy that I know that has my back. And I always wanted to be that for someone else. My house burned down when I was a few months later, my house burned down. So I was homeless after. He offered for me to live in his house, in his guest bedroom, and take care of me. And I was like, man, I got to return the favor, and I strayed off the path a few times in life. I would do something else. I get frustrated or whatever else. But I was like, man, I gotta do this. When I was at LSU, the floods in 2016 happened. So I was going to live with my mother-in-law. So when the floods happened, I still had to find somewhere to go. So they cleaned out her house because it was flooded. And so in 2017, when I was interning at LSU, it was literally just a roof and brick wall. I was on a concrete sawhorse, those concrete sawhorses in there for the entire time I was at LSU. I would work all day, come home, and sleep in a sleeping bag with my new wife, or watching a TV on a laptop. There was one completed shower, and that was it. And I was just, and I was like, it's gonna be worth it. It's gonna be worth it. It was so rough, but I thought back to, man, you know what? Coach Mayer was there for my roughest time. This isn't as bad. I can do this. And so I think that's what I think strength and conditioning is so powerful. You're around these kids all the time. You're this beacon of integrity and strong willness, and just being that guy that hey, no matter what, I'm not moving. I'm always going to be there for you, and that's what I wanted to be. So that's kind of my philosophy. Is in college now, you can't do it as much, but in high school, I really felt that. I felt like I was breaking ground, and they gave me new teacher of the year, and I walked out at halftime. They did all the teacher announcements. It got to me, and they did a whole standing ovation. And not to brag on me, but my wife looked at me and goes, "Hey, you're making a difference."
Yeah.
And I knew, I was like, you know what? This is worth it. I just got to keep it. Announcements.
Yeah. You're while you had mentors in high school, you ended up becoming that. And I think that's, like you said, that's what it's all about, because, these are the most formative years of their life, in high school. And it helps them get to beyond sports, right? It's more than just sport for a lot of them, and it helps them get beyond that, to have a mentor like that, just like you had. You've had, throughout high school, throughout your collegiate time playing, throughout, your collegiate coaching experience. You've had all those mentors, and to be able to do that for kids, and even continue it today at Indiana, those meals. I know we go back to it because it's getting me hungry around lunchtime.
Yeah.
But it's that's their mentorship, that they kind of get away for a little while, and kind of, while they still have their blinders on, the vision's a little bit different. This is me getting away from football while still being with a football coach or a strength coach, but me getting away from it and get to have that little bit of, home and warmth and all that, man. And I just think, our job as strength coaches, because we do get to be with every athlete, that mentorship is huge.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I said, just being consistent in their lives, and making a difference, and holding them accountable, and nothing's too small. Just helping them grow as young men and women, and I've had kids to this day still reach out, coach, thanks for holding me accountable for this. Like, I'm working, trying to get this new job and, or whatever, they're in life working night shift and they're like, coach, this is tough, but you help me to a high standard. I think I'm getting through it. Like they just reach out to you out of left field. You haven't talked to them in 5-6 years. And it's like, man, like this is why I get to do it. And again, college is going, it's such haywire right now, but you can still make those subtle differences in the high school, especially. So every high school strength coach listening, like you matter, like you really do. You need to, make sure that every single day you're on it. Kids are relying on you. Put your, be selfless and make sure that you're investing in other kids because you'll get, rewarded tenfold. So.
Yeah, man. And that, like, a big thing for me is just servant leadership. Like, I'm not going to do anything or ask a kid to, at the high school level, obviously it's a little bit different. You got to clean your facilities kind of yourself. The kids are split up into days. And I'm not going to ask you to go clean a bathroom that I haven't cleaned before. Whether it was being an athlete at this same school or as a coach now, I'm not afraid to do work, man. It's I think anybody's like that. It's just, you're not afraid to do work. It's that servant leadership that helps. And, it's big time, man. You have such a great story, man, between the, some things I didn't even know, I didn't know that y'all went through that and, that 16-17 flood time, man. I had no idea while you were doing your internship at LSU that went on. And, everything from 15 years old to where you're at now and the ups and downs. And, is there one moment or a story that you can kind of, man, this is the triumph. This is kind of where, I finally done it. I finally got to where that 15-year-old, thought he was going to be one day.
Yeah. I guess I've never felt like I've landed it. I guess that's the kind of drive, or like I don't feel big time here. I don't ever want to feel big time. Like I've had definite moments, that I was like, let's go. Like, no offense, but like when we beat Denham that first year I was there at y'all's place, like that was electric going from, a bunch of kids that like were not, I
was hoping that wouldn't get brought up, but
I'm just saying.
Hey, no, I get it, man. Like it's such a great game, but yeah,
it was just like, it was back and forth. And like, we didn't have like stellar athletes, and it was just one of those things like, man, like again, at the high school level, it just means that those kids cared so much. Like they cared about the outcome of the game. They cared about, their teammates. It was like, no one was being selfish. Like they were just giving their all, and that was awesome. The first conference win that Northwestern State had, my first year there, players came and gave me a hug, like, cause I was the only addition from the last staff. But I mean, I guess if I had to narrow it down, the most electric moment was when we went conference for baseball at Northwestern State. The year before we had almost 9 starters out in baseball. They're all broken the year before. We had every starter returning. We made the conference championship game. Freaking dominated, didn't lose a single game. And just those kids dogpiling each other. And like, I was like, man, this is special. Like, this is like, I'm not working a 9 to 5. I'm not sitting in a building all day. I'm with kids who are just jacked up. We're booking a private jet to go to Corvallis Regional next to play Oregon State. I think that was one of the moments of like, dude, this is awesome. This is an epic moment. And I think like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Again, I've fallen off the path a few times, but I've always kind of found, I think it was all for a reason. And so I think that's kind of what's helped me through, helped me through everything, is because I know that I was meant to do all those things. I was meant to leave the field and come back. I was meant to go down to high school and kind of regain my passion. So it's been good. But those are a few key moments that I just always remember.
No, man, and I love that it wasn't, that it was different aspects, not just football, not just, baseball. It was kind of, you picked a few that, man, these are the kind of pivotal moments where, we achieved what we set out to achieve. And, I'll tell y'all, him getting out of Live Oak was the best thing for me, because he used to freaking give me fits, and I used to chase after, man. I used to see little numbers here and there that these kids would have, and I'd be like, how the hell is this guy doing this over there, man? We have the same type of kid in this parish, and he's giving me freaking fits. And, it carried over. They did end up beating us that next year, and, that's part of it. But hopefully we get them this next season, that now that coach is kind of gone. And, Cash is going to give me fits too, man. He learned from one of the best, so we'll see what happens. But I love seeing that, man. Never did you think that, or probably those kids thought at Northwestern they'd be playing, Oregon State in a postseason play, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, like they just were going game by game, and we were, middle of the pack in the conference, but we were kind of getting hot. And then we got there and it's just like, we had this confidence. We walked out there. I think we were playing like Celine Dion on like this portable speaker. And they're like, what are these guys doing? And they just had this confidence, man. And we just came out and just destroyed everybody. We had Conference Player of the Year. David Fry plays for the Guardians now. It was electric, man. So I've been grateful to work with different sports, and each of them, were just awesome.
No, man, that's some awesome stuff, man. I love hearing. There's nothing like a good strength coach story, man, and I love hearing them. I got a few more for you, man. They're kind of my off the wall questions. And, one of them is, can you tell our listeners, because I see you posted a lot on social media, is the coach's Bible you kind of refer to a lot?
Yeah. Yeah, so someone gave that to me in college. It's the FCA Coach's Bible. And I think I just got done. Like, I was just becoming a coach. I can't remember exactly when and where, but I've had this thing for 10 years or more. And it basically gives a verse of the day, and it gives like a story from a coach talking about an experience he had, basketball, football, baseball, whatever, softball. And it'll just be a little a little story. It has, kind of message behind it. It has, a prayer, and then also some things to think about. And I don't get to go to church as much as I want to. And I told my mom that. I was like, man, I just feel so bad sometimes. I don't feel like I get to go as much as work or kids or whatever else. And I was like, you know what? My message will be, I can use social media just to put a word out there. And I was like, you know what? I read it, I posted it, and didn't think nothing of it. I mean, I've had 100 messages. What book is this? What, we love it. Like, I'm just like, wow. So I just got a new one. Shout out Roman Gomez for putting me on. He's at Rice. It's the Tim Tebow devotional. I've been through that one so many times. I was like, I'm going to change it up. The Tim Tebow one's, it's pretty, day one was awesome. So I was like, all right, so I'm on day like 3 or 4. Actually, I got to dive into it today still. And I just think just little messages like that, it doesn't have to be a lot, but sometimes you never know, someone comes across something and that might change their day. A positive, it could be if you're not religious, it's still a good message of being a good person. Yeah. I'm a believer, and I just think it's something good. And that if I can't go out in the streets and preach the word, I can at least put it on social media and someone can read it and subliminally see it. And then maybe one day, like, hey man, can I ask you about that story the other day? I'm like, yeah, man, always welcome to talk. So I think that's been something really positive. It's just anytime I get more positivity in my life, I'm always here for it. So.
Oh, yeah, man. We all need it, don't we? And it's funny you mentioned Tim Tebow. I was going to say, when you said you get hundreds of messages, that's kind of like Tim Tebow's eye black, right? How many times was Google used that night? John 3:16 is just, it blew up, right? Yep. So, that's awesome that's something I've been meaning to ask you about is, kind of what you're referring to in that, that book is. Mm-hmm. Next one I got for you, man. This one might be a little bit off the wall, but go to, whether as a player, as a coach now, you're getting your mind right for the game. What's a go-to song?
Oh man, it just depends on the mood, I guess. But I think Inner Sandman is always gonna be my like go to. I mean, it's the build up, just everything. I usually put that on if we're on a away trip and we're doing the bus in, like it's perfect timing. Usually it's 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Sitting there just like jamming out.
Kind of gives me goosebumps thinking about it.
Oh yeah, Inner Sandman's up there. Unless we're playing Virginia Tech, then I can't listen to that.
Right.
So it's that's probably my go-to. If I had to like nail down one, I'll go with that one.
No, that's an awesome song, man. Last one I got for you, man. Before I know you got a busy day ahead, but let's say you're stranded on an island, okay? Whether it's just you alone, maybe you, your wife, whatever. Is there one piece of weight equipment, whether it's for functional use or just to actually work out with, that you'd want on the island with you?
Oh, wow. I would hopefully it has some other things, but I think I would go one piece of weight equipment. Give me a 70-pound kettlebell. That's what I'm going to go with. You could do everything you would want, and if it's not heavy enough, just do 1,000 reps with it. If I had to have one workout equipment, it'd be that. I could do swings, rows, presses, Turkish get-ups, RDLs, single leg RDLs, lunges, carries. Give me that.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good weight. That's a good implement. If that's the only thing you're stuck on the island with, and you need something to do while you're stuck there, I guess that's the one to go with.
See, only the mind of a strength coach, right? That's how they're gonna. You can. I'm sure there's other uses for it, but you're actually the second one that's given that answer, so I appreciate it. I've had some answers, man, from trampoline to battle rope to obviously barbell. What's in the name slipping my mind, man? Lance Lacoste, the thing that you put your hand in, looks like a kettlebell.
Center mass bell.
Yes, center mass bell. Lance mentioned that one because you can do a lot with it. And that was an off the wall one that I thought was pretty good. So,
oh yeah,
kettlebell's a good one, man. While it rusts, maybe it still kind of holds true to its form. You don't have to garnish coconut oil to kind of get that bar spinning again, right? So
yeah, if anything happens, it's probably a weapon too. So just in case some creep would be on the island,
right? So, Coach, man, can you tell our listeners where they can find you on social media?
Coach _Myatt on Instagram. I think it's the same thing for Twitter. You can just type in Jared Myatt. I think it'll pop up on Twitter. That's really only two things I really use. I don't use TikTok or nothing. That's really it, man. I just try to post, either my kids, me cooking, or some training stuff. I'm starting to do some online training that I'm getting going. So I'm trying to really educate the youth, and that my goal is to really start educating younger athletes and also people who coach younger athletes. That way that it changes how we prepare these kids. That way when they come to college or high school, they're better prepared to make high school coaches' jobs better, college coaches' jobs better, instead of just doing a bunch of nonsense and then you take a year to fix it all. So that'll be coming in the near future. Just some simple online training to help, just go back to fundamentals. If you want something fancy, you can go somewhere else. But I'm going to give some just simple instructional stuff and really help, the next generation, I think.
Again, the meat and potatoes, that's what it's all about, right? You got to get get good at the little things to get to the big things. Not everybody needs, tsunami bars and, all this stuff. Well, it has its place, but not everybody needs that starting out, Get good at the little stuff. So, Absolutely. Coach, man, look, I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate you today, taking time out of your day. I know you got a busy schedule, y'all trying to repeat such a magical season from last year and just taking time to sit down with us for a little while and talk shop, man, outside of just the norm of programming and the norm of, what sometimes our days get into those repeated cycles.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, man. Again, I apologize on anything groundbreaking.
Yeah, but this is great, man, for our listeners.
Absolutely. I think the how is way more important than the what. And, it's just if people became more consistent, diving and being more detail-oriented and just and simplistic in their approach, everything will get better. You can do some crazy training, but as long as you have your fundamentals in a row nailed down, things are going to work out.
Absolutely, man. Well, I appreciate you again, Coach.
Absolutely. I appreciate you, man. I'll see you later.
Absolutely.
See you.
Thanks for listening to the Moffitt Method Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, X, and Facebook, where we share tons of free content to help your team get stronger and win more championships. Be sure to subscribe to our free blog where we post high-quality training insights every week. Thanks again for tuning in, and have a great day.
That's a wrap on another episode of the Moffitt Method Podcast. We hope you found today's discussion enlightening and empowering as you continue your journey in sports and strength and conditioning. Before you go, make sure to follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where we share more tips, behind-the-scenes content, and updates on upcoming episodes. Just search for Moffitt Method Podcast and hit that follow button. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite listening platform. That way, you'll never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd love it if you could leave us a review or share this podcast with a friend. It really helps us out. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, the key to success is just one more workout away. Until next time, stay strong and stay inspired.